3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10. Okay. Hello, internet world. Okay, I want to make a separate video about this shit. So I kept forgetting, but oh my god, I was on Instagram the other day and this Instagram ad came up and it was for this movie called Wolf. And I was just like, I actually watched through it, and when I had watched the whole thing, I was like, this looks like it was written by me or somebody I would have role played with in the past. Oh my fucking god. It's like, at the same time, it looks really shitty. Like, it looks like a movie I would never want to see. Like, one of those teen romances. Like, it's kind of a funny story that looked so fucking bad. Or, like, The Fault in Our Stars. Or, fucking any of these fucking teen romances that try to pretend like they're more than what they are. Because they're like, we're making our kids have serious problems here. And stupid bullshit like that. But, anyways, aside from the fact that I can't stand a teen romance, it just, on the other hand, was so nostalgic because I'm just like, the type of role playing I used to do was exactly like this. Exactly like this. Okay. If you haven't seen the trailer to Wolf, let me break it down and then I will tell you all about the shit I used to get into back in the virtual world. In the early 2000s. So basically, what it looks like, the trailer's only like a minute and a half or something. But what it appears to be is that these kids are in some type of place in like the middle of the woods, it looks like. And it seems to be like basically kind of like a crazy house situation, but if I told my family about it, I was equating it more to like those anti-gay camps where they're like, we'll train you out of being gay or whatever the fuck, because this one is like basically all the kids that are there. It's a special place for kids who want to be animals. And so that already got my attention because it's like, okay, I like pet play, animal play, I like primal play, I like furries, and all this shit. And this seemed to be kind of like, oh, in this world, people who want to be animals are like hated upon and sent to this fucking place. And they're like, we'll make you all into humans again. And they had them doing all this shit like, we're gonna walk like humans and we're gonna do this and that. And then, but then, of course, so they had to go for the most stereotypical shit ever. The main boy is a wolf. He's like, I want to be a wolf and shit like that. Steppenwolf or whatever, which I still have to read. And then the main girl, of course, she's like, I'm a girl, so I'm automatically a cat. Because, female and cat are just like this in the American consciousness. So, they had this little quote where they were like, they say a wildcat and a wolf are natural enemies, but I think we can not be enemies or something. So it's like, okay, you got like a Romeo and Juliet type of shit going on. And then there was another kid that they kept showing over and over who was like wanted to be a bird and had a whole bird costume on and stuff. Then they had this dude come by who's basically like the warden, or maybe you would call it a head doctor or something, and if it was a crazy house. And they're like, that's the zookeeper. You better stay out of his way, or something like that. And I'm just like, oh my god. We used to do the same exact shit on these roleplay forums. Like, the same exact shit. I seriously wonder if the person who wrote this movie, like, did the same role plays that, like, I used to do. Because it was a big thing back then. Like I was saying in one of my other videos, like, the other day, like, I can't find that shit anymore. Well, I've been out of loop for so long now, and I don't really look to go back in. I don't know, maybe there's been a revival, a fucking renaissance for all I fucking know. I'm just being left out of. But it gets really addicting, and I don't want to go back into a thing where I'm like constantly on my phone like every second of every day, because I'm just like, the feeling of getting a new message is better than anything else. It's like fucking heroin. I want it more than life itself. And even if one of my loved ones is talking to me or we're going to the park or something I would usually love, like, I don't care, because all I want to do is sit here and wait for this next message because it's the best feeling ever. I don't really want to fall back into that pattern. Like, it's really addicting, and it's just kind of like, that's okay, I guess, when you're a kid and you have, like, a lot of time. But I don't have a lot of time anymore. I'm trying to do a lot, and anyways, where the fuck was I? Right, so we used to do that same exact shit, like, I think I mentioned this also in like some of the other past videos, like Nothing Belongs to Me and the King Farm and everything like that. There's like this romanticism about like being locked up in a place like you're an animal, you know? Because I think, you know, I think it's multifaceted romanticism, because it's like, okay, on one hand, if somebody came into your house right now, unless you're like super fucking depressed and you have nothing to live for, and then you'd be like, okay, maybe this will be interesting adventure. But if you're an average citizen that has things going on in their life, and it's like, yeah, you hate your job, you wish you could be happier, but at the same time, you don't want to be taken away from everything, you know? Like, you have things going on, you might have kids, pets, or whatever, family, or friends, or you're dating somebody, you don't want to just be ripped away from everything, you know? But there's this fantasy of just like, oh, if only I could drop everything and just leave and have no responsibilities and just kind of be a kid again. Other people will take care of me and take care of my shit, and they'll figure out what time I'm gonna be fed, and they're gonna look out for me. I don't even have to worry about shit, you know? I just want to be a fucking pet. I just want to be an animal. I mean, people do age play, they do pet play, they do all that type of shit, so, like, that's, you know, it's like a thing, you know? It's like a fantasy that's like, maybe you wouldn't want it to really happen because it's too, just doesn't vibe with the real situation of life, but it's like, it's just that fantasy. And then, but the other thing that I think people will cite that a lot, they'll just be like, well, of course, people don't want to, you know, they'll say it in a longer way and try to incorporate some fucking psychological bullshit, but I think basically when you strip down to brass tacks, it's just like, people want to be relieved of their responsibility, like, people have too much shit to do, too much on their plate, everybody's worked until they die, you never get to just sit back and not have to do anything, even for a day, and if you do, it's like really, really rare, so it's just like this fantasy of being able to be free, but like, at the same time, I think there's another component of it that's not as simple, that is more, that just people forget to say, or they, I don't know, they either don't want to say it, or they probably just forgot, but I think, because this is what happened to me, okay, and I know I am not alone, because when I was a teenager and a preteen, I saw a lot of other people like me, especially on the internet, like, in real life too, but especially on the internet, where people can be more brash because you're anonymous, especially back then it was more anonymous, you know, and like, people can really just kind of say what they really mean and what they really want, and even if they're not saying it, like, bluntly, in pure form, like, you can kind of tell, like, you know, when people talk enough, but anyways, basically, I really, truly feel that, like, there was almost kind of like this promise given to people my age, and I don't know if it applies to other generations too or not, but I can only speak for millennials. Like, I feel like there was kind of this promise that if you're in a certain subculture, if you're bullied, if you're goth punk, anything like that, or if you just, basically, if you just are it depends on whether you, yourself, feel like you fit into this category for whatever reason, it doesn't matter. But basically, like, that you're, like, different, and you're, like, an outcast or whatever, and you're just, like, you don't fit in, and, like, and there was kind of, like, this, almost like this promise from society, like, not a real promise though, like a fake promise, like a Disney cartoon, like saying like, oh, or like Harry Potter, oh, one day you're gonna realize you're special, you're gonna be taken away from this boring, shitty world, and like, you know, everything's gonna be great, and like, it's like this princess fantasy, but instead of a princess, it's like the dark, other, like, upside down world version of it, where it's like, basically society's telling you, look, if you're weird, if you're outcast, like, one of these days, you're gonna get to spend at least a little bit of time in one of these special places. It doesn't matter if it's like a camp, a crazy house, a group, or anything, some form of something is gonna happen to you, where people will pay attention to you, you're gonna be, like, in a spotlight, people are gonna ask you questions all about yourself, and you don't even have to answer if you don't want to, you can be totally mute, you can be nonverbal, you can just be, like, and they'll still be interested in you. They will take full and total interest in you, no matter what, and you can keep them waiting if you want, or you can spill it all if you want, you can do anything you want. They will be there, and they will make you feel like a fucking superstar, because they will want to know what's going on in your head. They want you. They want you. And one day, all you have to do is wait and continue doing your weird shenanigans. and just continue being outcast, and one day it will happen to you. You will be recruited. Don't worry about it. It will happen to you. And it, for me and for many, many other people, it never did. And it's kind of like, well, now as an adult, it's like, okay, well, why should you believe that stupid bullshit? That's obviously just media. Just media selling you this fucking dream that, of course, is fake. But when you're younger, it's kind of like, you know, younger people haven't lived as long. They haven't had as much experience with a lot of fake things going on. And to the point where they, once you are becoming an adult, and I think becoming a real adult is not about, obviously it's not about becoming 18. When you're 18, you're usually still pretty much as you are as a teenager. You know, what's the difference between 18 and 17? Pretty much nothing, you know, 1 year. But you graduate high school, you know, that's the main thing. Maybe you get a job or something if you didn't already have one as a teenager. But it's like, but what am I talking about? Anyway, I feel like becoming a real adult, like actually feeling like I am an adult now, part of that is realizing how full of shit the world is and stuff like that. And when you finally find yourself not being surprised by shitty things going on anymore, like that's when you're a real adult. And maybe you're fucking hardcore and shit if you think you're so fucking special. Okay, maybe that happens when you're 14 or something if you think you're really fucking hardcore or whatever. Or whatever, you know, people be like, I came out of the womb like that, yeah, okay, whatever. Anyways, but, anyways, the point is, it's a fantasy not only because of the obvious thing of like, oh, it'd be nice if somebody took care of me and I could just feel special and go away to some fantasy place or whatever, but the other idea of like, having this like promise that was never fulfilled and was never meant to be fulfilled, having that finally fulfilled, and having that like whole, like, just taken care of. I don't know, something like, maybe I'm just talking crazy talk, but I swear to God, this is how I feel is real. Anyways, so the other thing I wanted to talk about was the roleplay situation that I feel like is closest to this because it involves animals and shit like that. Like, there was a whole bunch of like roleplay scenarios where we used to play what all the stuff I just was mentioning, where you get taken away and you're in some place. It was there were like you know, the typical like crazy house and hospitals, stuff like that. Then there was also like boarding school, you know, typical stuff. That's a little more normal, you know. And then there was also like I think there was probably prison, I don't remember, but probably, you know, and a whole bunch of other shit. But there was this thing called genetics lab roleplay, and if you saw it on the forums, you know exactly what you're in for if you're an experienced role player, because when you see genetics lab, this is not, there's more to it than just genetic. That was the title, but here's the setup. Basically, if you come into a genetics lab roleplay, this is what you're gonna be seeing. It's the same shit every fucking time. It's the same shit. This is what you come for. If you're a genetics lab roleplayer like I was, you want the same setup every fucking time because you know what you're coming for. You know. Oh my god. Basically, here's the setup, right? You're in some kind of like warehouse or something. It's supposed to be in a laboratory complex, but it's basically the equivalent of a big old warehouse, and there's like a bunch of cages. It's like a prison block, you know. Everybody's got their own cage. They're all locked in there, and basically it begins. Everybody kind of wakes up. They've been like knocked out or whatever, maybe just dragged in there. Everybody introduces themselves. They're like, "Oh, this is like what my character looks like," and you know, you go through the basic formalities of introducing everybody, and then they start chatting and talking, and their ratio is always way off because most people want to be experiments. Like, that's the majority, because, like, everything I just said. Okay, you want attention, you want all that shit. You want the spotlight on you. But, obviously, you can't have that if there is not a giver for you to be a taker, you know what I mean? So, there would usually be, like, between 5 and 20 experiments, and then there would be, like, one scientist. Maybe one or two scientists. And the scientists were a rare breed that were cool with doing it for us, and they were, I don't know if this falls into the category of service top or whatever. I'm still not totally sure what a service top is, but I think that a service top is basically like a dominant person, like a sexual dominant who instead of them just wanting to, like, pound your ass and fucking, like, slap you around and choke you and, like, beat you into the fucking floor and, like, call you, like, bitch and stuff like that, like, they're more of, like, they, a service top just wants to do stuff that you want, I guess? I mean, in theory, all, I mean, as long as everything's consensual, you want, no matter if they're aggressive or not, but I think a service top is more like, see, I kind of don't understand it fully, but basically I think it's just basically that, like, you know, they're trying to have, you know what, I still don't really understand it, but I think that, yeah, it's just like the optics of it is that, like, they're serving you, even though the game is that they still have more control over you, and you're still their bitch, but it's like they're servicing you somehow. You know what, I still don't fucking get it, but that's what I'm equating this with, I think. Because, basically, there would be one or two scientists, a rare breed, you know, and everybody would be celebrating. When the scientists came into the chat room, it'd be like, woo, finally we're gonna get some action, woohoo, you know, and everybody would be happy, at least I was. And then, maybe I'm remembering this through rose-colored glasses, but this is kind of the vibe I remember. And then it's just like, alright, we got our scientists, because you have no scientists, nothing can happen. Basically, the scientist would have all these, like, vials, and each one would be an animal. So that's the deal. It's like, it's not just random experiments, like, oh, if you breathe 100 packs of cigarettes a day, will it kill you? Or, like, if you eat a whole thing of lipstick, like, will it give you an ulcer or whatever? It's not like that. It's not like realistic experiments. And once in a while, you have these fucking trolls come in and be like, this is not realistic, yada yada. And it's like, go back to your fucking biochemistry class, asshole. We're trying to have fun and fantasy in here. But, anyways, whatchamacallit. So yeah, basically the gist of it is that the scientist comes around to each person, usually say in your, like, introduction, like, what animal your character is gonna get turned into, and then they come around, they, like, you have an interaction with the scientist, and then they use the animal chemical magic serum thing to change your character into a partial animal, and then you describe them change into whatever animal you want. So it's like, that's up to you. It's like, usually, you know, the basic shit is like the ears and tail, like in Mean Girls, but it's like, some people do different. They're just like, oh, my character had fur all over, or they got, like, the ears, or, I mean, not the ears, but, like, they got the antlers, they got the nose, they got whiskers, they got claws, they made their the color change, especially if it's an animal with spots or stripes, you know, maybe their skin changes to that, you know, it's just like that. And of course, you got this, like, scenario where it's like, the majority of people, of course, they want their characters to be basically like an anime character. Like, you're not gonna see anything with the majority of people that would make them, like, ugly. You want to always be, like, beautiful and, like, just basically you know, something that would still be in the category of, like, normie beauty. But then once in a while you have you know, a outlier or whatever, who does want their character to be ugly. There were role players who wanted their characters to be ugly, because that makes sense, you know, it's just like now, it's like people will say, why does everybody have to be conventionally, like, anime beautiful all the time? Why does it have to be this one standard of beauty, this one specific thing, and why does everybody have to want to have it? Because it's fucking fantasy. But they just be like, no, I'm gonna buck the system, I think this is stupid, like, this is too formulaic, everybody's just chasing the same dream here, which I don't have any problem with, and I definitely, like, fucking, did myself, you know, but I got away with it because I played men, which there is a ratio of probably, like, back then it was, like, probably 5 females to every 1 male or something, because, yeah, people played guys, but it just, like, the majority was females, wanting to be females, and, like, wanting to feel, like, femininely, conventionally, old-fashionedly beautiful, you know, and stuff like that. And then you have, some people that wanted to play guys, too, but I was definitely guilty of all the same shit. Like, I never played any guys that I thought were ugly. I've always played hot guys, you know, because why the fuck not? Why the fuck not? Like, when people go to bed together, and they want to play a sex game, are they gonna be like, well, I want to be fair to society, and I want to admit the fact that we're not all beautiful in this world, and actually, what is standard of beauty anyway? Why should we consider this to be beautiful and not this? So I would like for my fantasy, character tonight while we're fucking to look like something very non-conventionally attractive, and I believe that that's a better way of going about things in this world. Probably not, maybe now some people, but like I'm not saying there's somebody for everything, but I'm just saying the majority, you know it's radio friendly. Just think about that. Radio friendly, I think, applies to a lot of things. And I don't think it's necessarily bad, because if the heart wants what the heart wants, and the libido wants what the libido wants, let them have it, man. It doesn't matter if a lot of people want the same thing. Yeah, it's weird, and dissect it and talk about it all you want. I mean, it is pretty interesting, like why, but don't hate, or do. I don't care, because we're people who want the conventional old-fashioned standard of beauty are gonna continue to want it forever, and you're gonna see those fucking stickers on the back of cars with the fucking chicks with the 12-inch heels and like the big tits and ass and the tiny waist and the long flowing hair with the angel and the devil like wings and horns and all that on them. You're gonna see that shit forever, man. You're gonna see hey, man. I think everybody deserves to be loved, but like, well, I shouldn't say but. I think everyone deserves to be loved, and people who want what everybody else wants should want what they want, and people who don't want what everybody else wants should want what they want. It's a beautiful mixture. Anyways, yeah, so the scientists would come around to everyone individually. They would transform your character into the partial animal that you decide to make them be, and then everybody would kind of chat a little bit more, I think. And then basically the roleplay's over. I mean, you stick around as long as you want until the whole chat room dies, but I mean, that's kind of the whole attraction right there, unless you're doing a one-on-one roleplay where you're like playing out a whole story, and then you might be experimented on multiple times by your partner, or you might flip roles, or you probably double, like, each of you play a scientist and an experiment so that you have a crisscross so it's fair. And then, maybe eventually one of your scientists lets one of your experiments out, takes them home, they fall in love, which is basically the ending of all role plays. I tried to fight against that because I don't like guaranteed love. I thought it was more, see, this is where I was the fucking asshole rebel who was like, why should everything be love all the time? Why can't we just stay friends or enemies or not fall in love in the end? But it's like, it's my right to, it's people's right to want that, and it's my right to not want that. And same goes with all the rest, okay? So, hold on loosely, basically, is what I'm saying, like, the less rules, the better. Just be a linguist about it. Describe, don't prescribe, But yeah, so, anyways, I think I've said all I need to say. That was extremely convoluted, but, such is my channel and my life and everything I have to say, so hopefully you got what I was trying to put down. It doesn't have to be an organized essay or anything like that. I think people are smart enough to, like, go along with the roller coaster ride. Anyways, that's it. I want to try to do one Metal Gear video and then go to bed or whatever. I don't know.